People laughed the moment a dusty old pickup truck rolled onto the tarmac. Its engine coughed and whined, like it had no business being anywhere near a luxury airport. From it stepped a man covered in grease, wearing a threadbare flannel and scuffed boots. His name was Clayton Risa, small-town mechanic called in to fix a private jet belonging to one of the richest women in the world. No one expected him to touch the aircraft, let alone repair it. Behind the glass of the executive lounge, men in designer suits whispered, laughed, and watched as if they were witnessing a comedy skit. But one person wasn't laughing. Delaney Carterthe, billionaire heiress of Carter Skytech and owner of the jet, stood silently, arms folded, eyes narrowed, watching from the far end of the terminal. In mere minutes, she would walk down the runway and ask a single question that would change both their lives and shock the world. It was 6:00 a.m. when Clayton arrived at Clearwater International Airport. The sky still clung to the bruised purple hues of dawn. The air bit through his worn shirt, and his boots echoed against the concrete with each purposeful step. He'd gotten the emergency call just before San Rosano details, just a location and a promise of fast payment. From afar, the jet loomed like a silver beast, pristine and lifeless, surrounded by well-groomed men in dark navy suits and polished shoes. One of them glanced at Clayton as he approached, then leaned toward a colleague and whispered something that made them both laugh. Clayton didn't care. He'd seen their type before business room brilliance, with zero understanding of engines. What mattered now wasn't ego or attire. It was the aircraft. Someone's life could depend on it. He dropped his bag of tools beside the engine hatch, opened the panel and froze. What he saw nearly knocked the air from his lungs. The fuel line was ruined, not just cracked, but melted. The insulation was gone. The clamp was corroded. And the fuel leak? It was mere inches from the ignition coil. One spark, and that plane would have ignited midair. Whoever had last inspected this should be permanently banned from aviation. Clayton didn't wait for approval or backup. He had no assistant, no time for explanations. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work. Inside the terminal, Delaney Carter watched in silence. Her staff whispered. Some laughed behind their hands, but she wasn't amused. She had grown up in jet engines and boardrooms. Her father built Carter Skytech from nothing. She had turned it into an empire. She could fly jets, build them, race them, and what she saw on the runway stunned her. That man wasn't just repairing an engine, he was resurrecting it. Who was this grease-streaked stranger with torn jeans and hands that moved like a surgeon's? Why could he see what her top-paid team of engineers missed? Then the lights flickered. A hum began to rise from the belly of the jet, low and steady like a heartbeat returning. Delaney's breath caught in her throat. Everyone else saw a mechanic. She saw something else entirely. And in under 3 minutes, she would walk down that tarmac and change their lives forever. When the jet roared back to life, the lounge fell silent. The executives, once sneering, now stared with disbelief. One of them whispered, "That should have taken hours." Clayton had already closed the engine panel. He didn't smile, didn't bask. He wiped his hands on a rag, shouldered his tool bag, and turned to leave. Then the jet door opened. The steps lowered with a hiss of hydraulics. Every eye turned. The first thing to touch the metal steps, a pair of sleek black heels. Delaney Carter descended, graceful and commanding. She wore a navy suit with gold buttons, hair tied back, stride confident. But something had changed. Her expression wasn't one of power or performance. It was curious, intent, real. She passed by her engineers, the mocking executives, the silent staff, and she walked straight toward the man everyone else had dismissed. "Did you fix it?" she asked quietly. Clayton blinked. "Yes, ma'am." She stepped closer. "You saved it. My pilot told me the engine was beyond repair. Said we'd have to ground it for a week." "He didn't see the melted fuel line," Clayton replied, calm. "It was nearly touching the ignition coil." Her eyes narrowed not in anger, but recognition. "You could have walked away." "I don't walk away from fire hazards." Silence stretched. Then Delaney smiled, not a polished boardroom grin, but something small, sincere, and unexpected. "You know who I am?" she asked. "Yes, Delaney Carter, Carter Skytech. You're not impressed." "I'm not here to be impressed. I'm here to fix problems." She studied him, then turned to her entourage. "All of you inside, now." No one argued. Doors shut with a soft click. Now it was just them, alone on the tarmac. I've spent my life surrounded by men who talk too much and do too little, Delaney said. You're the first who did the opposite. I was just doing my job. She took a long breath like someone deciding something irreversible. Then she looked him in the eye. What would you do, she said slowly, if someone like me asked you for something completely insane? Clayton didn't move. Depends. How insane? If I asked you to marry me. Time froze. The wind whispered down the runway. A bird flew from a post nearby. Clayton, still in fuel-stained boots and a shirt faded by years of labor, stared at the billionaire across from him, not with shock or panic, but calm curiosity. He didn't laugh, didn't smirk, just stood there, as if weighing a real question, not a joke. Most men would have stammered, assumed she was kidding. But Clayton had spent too many years fixing things everyone else gave up on. He knew the difference between noise and meaning, and this wasn't noise. Delaney waited, her face unreadable, her breath uneven. She wasn't used to waiting, but she did. Clayton wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. You don't even know me, he said. That's why I'm asking. He raised an eyebrow. Say again? She stepped forward, her heels clicking like a countdown. I've been proposed to 23 times. I counted. All men in suits, memorizing my net worth and calling it love. But you, she paused, voice trembling. You walked into this nightmare with a wrench, saved my jet, risked your life, and asked for nothing in return. I didn't do it for you. I did it because someone had to. Exactly, she whispered. That's what makes it real. He looked down, suddenly aware of the grease on his hands and the frayed collar of his shirt. You want to marry a mechanic? I want to marry the only man here who didn't try to impress me. Behind them, terminal lights glowed in the dusk. A few curious faces peeked through the windows. Phones were probably recording. Delaney didn't care. For once, she wasn't performing. She was being. Clayton finally broke the silence. You serious? As serious as I've ever been? He studied her, not the outfit, not the name, but the person. Then take off your heels. Delaney blinked. What? If you're serious, take off your shoes. Walk with me. 5 minutes. No titles. No headlines. Just two people, same ground. She hesitated for just a second, then kicked off one heel, then the other, barefoot on the warm tarmac. Delaney Carter followed a mechanic into the sunset. They passed the jet, the stunned staff. She didn't ask where they were going, just matched his stride. Clayton led her to an old hangar at the airfield's edge. It looked forgotten. He opened the creaky door. Inside, no machines, no glamour, just a folding table, a worn-out chair, and walls filled with photosplanes, engines, and a little boy in overalls beside a smiling older man. My father built his life fixing engines, Clayton said quietly. Taught me that nothing's beyond repair. When he passed, I kept this hangar, left the lights off. Dreams don't run on electricity. They run on guts. Delaney turned slowly, absorbing it all. All the men you've known wanted your empire, he continued. I don't care about that. But if you're offering something real, don't expect champagne and fireworks. Expect scraped knuckles, repairs at midnight, dinner on toolbox lids. She smiled. That sounds perfect. For the first time, Clayton smiled back. Not because he was charmed, because he believed her. The next morning, golden sunlight streamed through the dusty windows of the hangar, like liquid amber. Delaney sat cross-legged on the concrete floor, barefoot, wearing an oversized flannel. Clayton spare sipping coffee from a chipped mug. Her designer dress was folded neatly beside her, almost forgotten. She looked nothing like a billionaire heiress, just a woman finally at ease. Across from her, Clayton leaned over a small tool tray, tightening bolts on an old Cessna he'd been restoring for years. He hadn't looked up once. You really stayed, he said finally, his voice low. I told you I would. Most people would have called a driver, checked into the nearest 5-star suite. Delaney shrugged, her smile soft. I already know what 5 stars feel like. I wanted to know what 5 a.m. feels like with you. Clayton chuckled. It's loud. Smells like grease. Starts with black coffee and cold feet. She raised her mug in a mock toast. To cold feet then. But outside the hangar, the world was not as quiet. News was spreading like wildfire. A missing heiress. A grounded jet. leaked security footage. Delaney Carter was trending everywhere. And the rumors? Wild. Someone had seen Erberfoot walking down the runway with a grease-stained man in torn jeans. Back at Carter Aviation headquarters, chaos reigned. Jason Pennington, the COO and longtime advisor to Delaney, stood at the head of the conference room, face red with frustration. "This is unacceptable. We have reporters outside, panicked shareholders, and an emergency board meeting in 20 minutes. A younger executive leaned in, cautious. "Sir, what if she's just choosing love?" Jason scoffed. "She's a Carter. Carters don't chase love. They build legacies." But one woman at the table, Delaney's godmother, a sharp-eyed matriarch named Evely, remained silent. She'd seen Delaney grow up in castles and cry alone in them. She remembered missed birthdays, rehearsed laughter, and hollow applause. And now, for the first time, Delaney was off script. Evely sipped her tea, hiding a rare, knowing smile. Back at the hangar, Delaney helped Clayton with the Cessna's stabilizers. Her fingersaws, used to signing million-dollar contracts, were now smeared with oil, and she loved it. They worked in comfortable silence, joked, shared glances that said more than words. But by late afternoon, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the edge of the runway. Clayton tensed. Delaney stood slowly, recognizing the man who stepped out. Jason. He was dressed not for a hangar, but for a courtroom, impeccable, rehearsed, dangerous in his smoothness. "Miss Carter," he said, voice perfectly even. "Thank God you're okay." Delaney wiped her hands on a rag. "What brings you out here, Jason?" "The world's panicking. Your jet never left. The press is swarming. I'm here to escort you back to reality." She smiled politely. "You mean your version of it?" Jason's eyes flicked to Clayton. "And who's he?" Clayton stepped forward, unbothered. "Just the guy who kept your jet from turning into a fireball." Jason forced a tight laugh. "Sure. And now you think that qualifies you to stand next to her?" Delaney's voice dropped low. "Precise. I don't need qualifications to choose who stands next to me." Jason's composure cracked. "There are investors watching, appearances to uphold. You're a Carter." "No," she said, walking slowly toward him. "I'm Delaney, and for the first time I'm going to live like it." Jason opened his mouth, then shut it. Delaney turned to Clayton. "Come with me." "Where to?" "To show the world I'm not ashamed of the only person who ever saw Minnow my brand." Clayton hesitated, then nodded once. She reached for his hand, and this time he took it. The hangar doors swung open. Camera shutters exploded like fireworks. But Delaney Carter didn't flinch. Oil-stained hands, no makeup, no diamonds, just truth. The world held its breath as they stepped into the golden blaze of evening light. Outside, the media swarmed. Reporters shouted. Flashbulbs popped. But she didn't hear a word. All that mattered was the man beside her, the one who had never tried to own her, only understand her. Jason sat in his car, watching from a distance, fury and disbelief tangled on his face. Years of carefully crafted PR, of boardroom deals and empire building undone in a day. "Delaney, this is reckless," he'd texted earlier. "You can't throw it all away for a mechanic. What about your legacy?" But she hadn't responded. She didn't need to. She had made peace with something that would change everything. She'd spent her life building a future she didn't even want. It was time to stop pretending. Clayton, who had no wealth, no pedigree, no PR team, walked beside her, calm and steady. His hands were still black with grease, his boots worn. He didn't fit her world, but he was her truth. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. As they approached the aircraft again, her pulse quickened not from nerves, but peace. A peace she'd never known. "Are you sure?" Clayton whispered. Delaney smiled, a quiet, confident smile. "I've never been sure of anything in my life." The jet gleamed under the setting sun. The media chaos roared behind them. But Delaney didn't care. She was finally choosing for herself. Not for legacy, not for headlines. For her. The doors closed behind them with a hush of finality. The outside world, stockholders, journalists, expectations would have to wait. The jet ascended slowly, leaving the tarmac, the hangar, and her old life behind. Delaney turned to Clayton, his expression unreadable but warm. She reached for his hand again. Through the intercom, the pilot's voice crackled. "Destination?" Delaney looked out the window at the sky, stretching endlessly before them. "Wherever life takes us," she said. Her voice was steady, free. Clayton met her gaze, and in that one look, they both understood. This wasn't the end of a chapter. It was the beginning of everything.